Well, hello, everybody. We want to welcome you to tonight's webinar and super excited about having you join us tonight. Um, why don't you do us a favor, if you would, as we're waiting for a few people just to hop on here in the chat box. By the way, chat only will be used tonight for strictly these types of interactions. But go ahead and put in there what year. Hopefully, everybody here is. Actually, why am I saying that, Jason? They all should be from 2026, but more importantly, what
Yeah,
part of the country you are from.
there
So
we
just
go.
tell us where you're from. Thank you. Awesome.
Arizona,
I
Denver,
see. There we
Texas,
go. I see
South
some.
Carolina. That's our neighborhood.
Yeah, I saw one of my clients. Great to see you tonight.
Yeah, all
Mhm.
over California.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
All right.
Mississippi. Very cool. Very cool. Where the Georgia people at? No Georgia people. They're all like
Nope,
they all have the Hope Scholarship. So
that must be it. Yeah, Massachusetts. Okay. All right. Well, listen, we're super excited about you joining us tonight. We're talking about obviously a really important topic, which we love talking about. Just quickly, I'll introduce myself. My name is Dan Bisig, and I have actually been working with College Aid Pro for 4 years now. And I actually specialize in both financial aid and the admissions process. So I'm a little bit unique in that regard, but super excited to be with you to talk about appeals tonight. And Jason, let me hand it over to you.
yeah, thanks, Dan. I'm Jason Slone. I'm one of the college planners here, College Aid Pro. Been here 2 years now. But my background is I've been in higher ed for a very long time. Been a professor since '02, and but I was a dean for 7 years. So my joke is I'm the dean that spills the beans on how financial aid works for a
Love
family.
that, man. Love it.
My other joke too is I do this now to help families out of penance for all the years I spent on the other side of the table to get parents to
uh,
pay. So
yeah,
no,
that's good. I like
yeah.
that.
Most importantly, though, I'm a parent. I got 3 kids. I have two in college right now, a senior and a sophomore. So I feel your pain, parents. I got a ninth grader in high school as well. So one more to try to get through. So I've been in your shoes,
No
but
doubt. Yeah,
not.
and hey, by the way, somebody's already done this. We appreciate it. Feel free to ask questions by putting it in the Q&A. And without further ado, Jason, you've got something to share tonight, don't you?
Yeah, let me share some slides here. And if I can work the technology, we'll see. Let's see here. How do we? All right, see if I can get this sharing down. We're pretty good at college planning. I don't know about the technology though. Can you see that? Did I do it okay, Dan?
Yes, yeah, you've got the
Yeah.
mission up here. So
Okay, very good. So yeah, if you hopefully you all know who we are, College Aid Pro. We're deeply committed to our mission. This is a mission-driven organization. We love helping parents trying to end the student debt crisis by empowering families to shop smarter for college. And we are truly, truly committed to this mission. I mean, we go beyond, above and beyond, to help our parents. And in the spirit of going above and beyond, we got a quick word from our founder, Matt Carpenter.
If you think that hurt, try overpaying for college. Never accept the college's first offer. You can always squeeze more out of them.
All right.
oh
There we
man,
go. Good.
I'll tell you what, if that doesn't start off this session, I don't know what was. We're gonna have a little fun tonight, but most importantly, we're talking about a very serious topic. And as you can see, he takes it very seriously. So where do we start? The whole thing here, folks, is that it's really a matter of using your MyCap. And hopefully everybody tonight already has a MyCap account set up. For those of you that work with the CAP experts like myself and Jason, you probably also have the advisor side of things, where we dive a little deeper. But the thing that you need to know is that the MyCap is a great starting point for you to be able to work through things. And we're going to show you in a few minutes. Actually, I'm going to jump into the software a little later where we've got the ability to actually walk you through what happens if you upgrade, if you go past just the free version, so that you've got the ability to also upload your awards and things. So make sure that you've got that. We hope you do. So when it comes to this whole appeal process, here's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to talk about when to appeal, how do you appeal, or excuse me, who do you appeal to, should you appeal, and then also finally how to appeal at the end. So let's jump right into this and deal with the very first one, which is this idea of when to appeal. All right, Jason. So first, timeline. If you think about it, you submitted applications or students submitted applications back in the fall. Maybe even some of you continue to apply here, even into January for some of these regular decision opportunities at the more selective colleges. Then you submitted your financial aid forms, sometime after October the 1st. Thankfully, that process went pretty smoothly this year. We had the opportunity then for you to start getting acceptance offers from these schools. You're receiving merit aid notifications if you applied for schools that offer those. And then right now, what's starting to trickle in are these financial aid offers, the letters that are coming in. And hopefully everybody here tonight with your students, you guys are checking the student portals, because a lot of colleges, that's where it goes. You'll see that there's a tab in there for admissions. There's likely a tab in there for financial aid. Some of the schools are still going to send out emails, maybe even old snail mail, because that does happen from time to time. But what we're interested in tonight is after you get these awards, now's the time for you to consider appealing. In other words, what's going on here? And so let's dive into this, because we really do want to understand when is it appropriate to do it. So first thing you have to do is you have to understand your offer. So think of it this way. On the left side, we're dealing with all the good free money. That's your grants and your scholarships. The grants are going to be based on financial need. That's 100% driven by the financial aid forms that you submitted. It also will be a combination often of federal, state, or institutional aid that they're providing. And this is truly where your student aid index, your SAI, really does matter. And then, of course, the scholarships. Are the scholarships coming based on a student's talent? Is it based on their academics, or their sports, whatever they might be doing? Those are the types of opportunities that come into play. Also, you want to take some time during that, the review of those, to see what kinds of criteria a student needs to maintain moving forward. And then we move to the other side. This is what's referred to as self-help. So this is the work study opportunities. That's basically a part-time job that a student can have on campus for a certain number of hours. Maybe you're working at an information booth at the library or at the dorm, or helping in the cafeteria or something like that. But those are opportunities that come along with that, maybe even helping with a professor. So that's work study. And then loans. So the loans that you're going to see on the financial aid offers that are coming in are going to be the federal loans. So that's the federal direct student loan. It also could include the Parent Plus loan as far as the options. And so again, it's a matter of you understanding what have you received, how much free money have you received, and how much of the self-help type of money, and unfortunately, in many cases, the debt. So this is an example we wanted to show you. Right up top here, you can see that the estimated cost of attendance, and remember, that's everything included, tuition, fees, room and board, and everything's about $97. They do a nice job of breaking everything down here. And then we come down and they put in here also loans and work study as far as opportunities to help reduce that. And then that's broken down below that as well. So you can see the amount that's coming in there for the work study, the student loans, and then the parent loans. Now, the one thing I will point out to you, just recognize that there's been some pretty dramatic changes in those Parent Plus loans. So don't, run to the bank and say, hey, other students are getting, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 of Parent Plus loans offered to them. The truth is it's only $20,000 now per year for the first 3 years, and then it goes to $5,000 in the fourth year. So for a grand total of $65,000. And then at the bottom, we've got any estimated cost, which is the $44,000. But again, USC does a really nice job of working through this, where they actually break everything down so it's pretty easy to see. Okay. All right. Next slide. Here's another example. So in this case, you can see the direct cost, and this is a school that's broken it down, is $63,000. And then to the right of that are indirect costs. These are things like books and transportation and any other fees that come into play, which then leads to a total estimated direct cost, in this case, of $40,000. Then down below that, we start to see the unsubsidized loans in this particular case, which is the $5,500. And then finally, at the very bottom is the estimated net cost. Just know this, the real cost that we're really looking at here is closer to almost $40,000 because of everything that needs to be added in there. Make sure that you're really looking at this because some schools only show direct cost. Other cases, they're going to put also those indirect costs. And just recognize too that those indirect costs really are variable depending upon a lot of things. You know, how often is your student coming home? What does it really cost for their books and other things like that? How many pizza parties do they host? Whatever it might be. Here's another example from Drexel. Again, you can see that they've got the scholarship listed here. Then they have the grant after that that's been available. Below that, this student actually qualified for an estimated Pell Grant. So that's federal need-based money. Below that, again, is another opportunity where we've got the federal supplemental educational opportunity grant, which again is need-based. So again, they do a nice job of breaking all the free money down on this particular slide. And when we go to the next one, you can see this is where they put in the additional items. So federal work study, and then they also have a subsidized and unsubsidized loan. But what I do want you to notice up top is they do a good job of breaking down the cost of attendance minus the gift aid. And in fact, any of you that have actually attended our workshops in the past, you know that this is the formula we use all the time. COA minus your SAI, or in this case, the free money, equals the net cost of attendance. That's what we're talking about here. So anyway, estimated work studies down at the bottom and those loans as well, so that it comes to a grand total there of $7,000 to come into it. So, all right, next slide. So who should be looking at appealing? This is an important question for you to consider, folks, as you're going through this, because really, it's an important discussion. It depends a lot on the colleges and everything else like that. So Jason, go ahead. So there are really a couple of different types of appeals. There's merit aid appeals. And just know that whenever you're dealing with merit, you're likely dealing with the Office of Admissions. Sometimes there might be a scholarship department that's actually in tune with that, and tied to the admissions department. But a lot of times it's all packaged in the same organization. And then there's need-based appeals. Whenever we're talking about need-based, just recognize the fact that that is tied directly to your financial aid. And in fact, this question here, can you appeal for both? Potentially. It really depends on your circumstances. Don't be surprised, in fact, if your financial aid offer, as we just saw with those offers that were already shown, that it could be a combination of both anyway. There could be merit scholarships that are on there as well as need-based appeals. The need-based appeal, of course, in that case is going to go to the financial aid office. That's who you're going to be talking with in that particular case. So do know this, it depends then on each of these as to who the right person is leading the conversation. We love to get the students involved because remember, mom and dad, ultimately it's your student that's going to the school, it's your student that's going to be communicating with those schools. But sometimes you need to step in to actually be involved, especially when it's a need-based appeal. Really, really important that you keep that in mind. So also know that whenever we're dealing with these need-based financial aid appeals, we're dealing with the numbers, right? And a lot of students really don't have a lot of information or details about that. They don't know what's going on. They may have participated, in some way when it came to, identifying the schools that the FAFSA or the CSS profile we're going to. But mom and dad, you're probably leading the charge here. We already know that it's based on a 2-year look back. So for you 2026 graduates, we're dealing with your 2024 tax returns, both for the parents and the student. We also know that the biggies that they're looking at is your AGI, which is on line 11. And then also, of course, line 22, which is the amount of taxes that you paid. Students are thankfully allowed to earn some money. In fact, I'm a big fan of this, Jason. I know you are too, as far as students getting a job. Part-time jobs anymore can really lead to some decent earnings. And in this case, we're looking at $11,770 which is the allowance, which means they can earn up to that amount without any impact on financial aid. So just keep that in mind. Just a great way to get them involved. Oh,
Yeah, and on that note, Dan, good news from the Sloan family household. My college senior, speaking of having a student job, has had student job for all of college, and now he's been given a job offer for after college.
hey,
Yay!
fantastic. Congratulations.
Getting
My
them off
gosh,
the payroll. Get off the payroll.
absolutely,
Go,
man.
go pay your own bills finally.
You're
My
getting
goodness.
the bird out of the nest, right? I mean,
That's
that's
right.
that's
That's
what it's
right.
all about. That's huge, man.
It's a
Congratulations.
pay raise for him.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to hand this over now to Jason when it comes to should you.
Yeah, so we've actually gotten a number of questions in the QA along these lines, like, hey, we've gotten these circumstances, we got this, that. Should we appeal? Should we appeal? Should we appeal? Should we appeal? So we get this question a lot. I mean, generally the answer is yeah, you probably should, but be realistic about your chances, there are better candidates for appeal than others. Okay, so let's talk about some good candidates for appeal, meaning that you have a pretty good chance of success. So generally speaking, again, we're generalizing here, so there's always going to be exceptions, but generally speaking, private colleges much better candidates for appeal than public universities. Now, that does not mean public universities never give more aid on appeal. It just means that generally speaking, private colleges are more receptive to appeals than publics. And so, if your student is looking at a private college, I almost always would say try an appeal. It doesn't hurt. Okay. Second is if you had a retirement distribution in the base income year. I actually talked to a family today where this happened. So as Dan said earlier, when you file the FAFSA, when you file the CSS profile, they're going to take mom or dad's income from the prior year. So if your kid's going to 26, that's your 24 tax returns. Well, what if you did a Roth conversion or you took a 401k distribution like this family I talked to today? They had some unfortunate circumstances and had to take some money out of the 401k. Well, that's going to hit your tax returns and it's going to make it look like you make much more per year than you actually do. That was just a one-time event. And so that's a really good case for appeal as well, because you can go to the financial aid office and say, hey, we didn't make that much. This was an unusual event kind of thing, right? If you've had a change in your marital circumstances, or if you're in a divorce, separated, kind of remarried situation, these can be good candidates for appeal. Certainly, if you've gotten divorced or separated since 2024, in other words, like in 2024, you filed your taxes married, filing jointly, and now you're divorced, and only one parent is filing the FAFSA, or only one parent provides the most financial support. Well, they're going to see two incomes on the FAFSA from 2024, so you're going to have to handle that. And then there are also many other kind of special circumstances around divorce, separated, remarried kind of situations that are good candidates for appeal. When the webinar here, we get to the end of it, we're going to put a meeting link in the chat to give everybody the opportunity to do a free consultation with us to get some kind of more specific advice to your specific situation, because we're staying high level in the webinar. But if you're in a divorce, separated, remarried kind of a situation, you might want to talk to us because there's likely a good chance for you to have a successful appeal. You just want to get some guidance around that. Now, in parentheses, you can see there we say, watch out for IM versus FM colleges. And not to get too much in the jargon, but IM colleges are colleges that use the CSS profile. And an FM college is the college that just uses the FAFSA and does not use the CSS profile. And the reason why we say watch out, of course, if you've seen any of our other webinars, I think maybe you mentioned earlier, Dan, but when you file the FAFSA, if it's a FAFSA only school, only one parent has to file. But if it's a CSS profile school that uses the IM, the institutional methodology, typically the non-custodial parent also has to file. So these are kind of the complexities around divorce cases when it comes to financial aid. So again, you might want to talk to us. And then business owners often, if you own a business or you're self-employed, this is often a good basis for appeal because the financial aid forms don't capture the complexity of business ownership, right? You got these neat boxes and when you own a business, you got revenues fluctuating and interest expenses and deductions and all kinds of complexity there. And so a lot of times the financial aid forms don't capture that complexity. And so you can go to to the colleges and make your case and explain, like, look, this is our reality, this is our situation. The income looked like this, and the revenue looked like this, and the valuation looked like that, and you might have a good case for appeal there. So if you're self-employed or own a business, you probably want to think about doing an appeal. And again, talk to us if you want some help. You're not sure how to do it. There's a lot of money on the line here. Talk to us. We give you some expert guidance. And then one of the best candidates for appeal, that's why it's highlighted in bold there, is if you have better offers from competing colleges. Now, let me talk a little bit about competing colleges. What does that mean? Well, a competing college is a college of a similar type that are competing for the same types of students. So I'll give you a case. I grew up in Ohio. I now live in Savannah, Georgia, because I escaped the snow. Sorry, Dan.
Yes, you did.
I needed the beach. I couldn't do the snow anymore. But grew up in Ohio, and I attended the College of Worcester, small liberal arts college in Ohio. And Worcester competes with like Denison University, Kenyon College, Oberlin, those kinds of schools, Ohio Wesleyan. So if your kid was interested in going to Worcester, which they should be because it's the best college, you might want to also apply to, Kenyon or Denison, because if Kenyon or Denison gives you a better scholarship, better offer, better financial aid than Worcester, you could go back to Worcester and say, hey, if you can't meet it or beat it, I'm going to go to Denison. And Worcester's going to say, no, don't go to Denison. Come here instead, ideally. And so, but it's got to be the same type, right? So if you're applying to Yale and Harvard, you actually might get a different financial aid award offer, even though they both meet need, because Yale thinks your home equity in your primary residence part of it should be used for college. Harvard does not. So if you get into Harvard, you get into Yale. First of all, congratulations, you won the lottery. But Yale gives you a worse offer, you could go to Yale and say, hey, Harvard gave us a better offer, and a lot of times Yale will match that. But you can't go to Harvard and say, hey, Worcester gave me a scholarship, College of Worcester gave me a scholarship, can you match Worcester? Because Harvard and Worcester are not competing with each other, right? Again, that's how I was able to go to Worcester, because I couldn't have gotten to Harvard. Okay, now, what are some bad candidates for appeal? Well, obviously, flagship state public colleges and universities. Look, if you're going to Ohio State or you're going to Penn State, you're likely not going to have a lot of luck on appeal. Possibly, it's not never. Again, there are exceptions to all these rules, but it's a lower probability of success appealing at some of these schools. But if you have some special circumstances, it might work. I just talked to a family today, and they're looking at Texas A&M, and the kid just found out she's a national merit finalist. And it's like, okay, that might be something you want to go back to A&M and see if they'll give you some more money or something like that. Okay. But if you've had no changes in your financial situation, you don't really have much to appeal, because again, the appeal is basically you're going back to the college and saying, I can't afford what you're asking me to pay, and here's why I've got these special circumstances. Well, if you don't have any special circumstances or no changes, well, they're going to go, what's different than what you put on the FAFSA, right? And no one-time distributions like we had talked about and so forth. So in other words, should you always appeal? Probably, but I would have realistic expectations in a few of these cases. If you're not sure, take advantage of the free consultation to meet with us. We will be honest with you and say, look, I'll be honest with you. If Penn State's your top choice, you're probably not going to get any money. But if it's a bunch of other schools, you probably do have a good chance. And we'll be honest with you about that. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is, when you get your financial aid award offers, is evaluate them. Look at them. Like, Dan went through a couple of examples, USC and Drexel, and what are they actually offering you? And you got to make sure are they offering scholarships and grants, which is free money that doesn't have to be paid back, so the cost of college goes down? Or are they offering us work, study, and loans? So the net cost, it doesn't move. It's still the sticker cost. All right, it's still sticker price, because work, study, and loans, they don't bring the cost of college down. Loans actually increase the cost. So what's the true net cost, right? And then you can compare that to net cost projections in MyCap, for example. Okay, so if you've run MyCap and the information you've put in there is accurate, MyCap will be able to show you, like, hey, you got a bad offer. That's a terrible offer. You can go back and ask for more money. You should have gotten $10,000 more. You qualify for more, or whatever. So look at what they're offering you and then compare it to what MyCap projects. And again, as long as the information you put in MyCap is accurate, it'll give you a good sense of how much aid you should have gotten. And occasionally they'll do better than what we project. I had a family I talked to this morning. They told me about an award at Chapman University in California. I was like, whoa, that's a great offer. We weren't projecting that. So occasionally it happens on the other as well. All right. And then you want to look at, what is your student aid index estimate? And I talked to a family today where MyCap had projected their student aid index should have been around 50K, 45, 50K. And the school came back and said, you're going to have to pay $80,000. And it was a meets needs school. I was like, oh, we've made a mistake somewhere. Remember, the student aid index is what the colleges think you can pay. And so that's what they'll charge you if they think you can afford it. And so that family is clearly a good candidate for appeal. There must have been, there's a mistake made on the CSS profile or something like that. Okay. And again, keep in mind the difference between the cost of attendance. That's just the sticker price. What are the direct costs and what are the estimated costs, as Dan pointed out earlier. It's got to get a sense of what's it really going to cost. And then do you qualify for need in the same way that MyCap was projecting the kind of need that you should qualify for. Okay. And then lastly, and MyCap projects this as well, is how much need do we qualify for, which again, is cost of attendance minus SAI. And then how much does the school meet of that need with free money, with grant money? And MyCap will tell you that as well. All right. So that's how you can, evaluate your award offer to see if you are a good candidate for appeal, and MyCap will help with that. Should we jump into the MyCap and do a quick demo?
Yeah, let's do that. Okay.
Let me stop.
So let me share my screen here. Yep. If it's going to cooperate with me here. Of course it's not. Hang on a second here. I'll tell you what. It never fails, right? You want to show something and whammo.
I said, we're really great with financial aid, but maybe not technology always. Can't be great at everything, right?
Yeah. All right. It's coming up, I promise you, folks. Okay, here we go. Now I'm ready to go ahead and share the screen here. Get this up here for you to see. All right. So what we're looking at here is just a sample of the MyCap account. But what I want to go into in particular is, you've gone through the process of the school selection, the affordability, hopefully conversations, financial aid forms. Now we're going to compare awards. And so the reason this is such a big deal, I want you to notice, and just so we're clear on this is if you have upgraded. It's really important that you know that. And when we're looking at this, that you can add an award. And so the nice part about this is then down here at the bottom, look at what it's doing here. Is it's showing, okay, so how does this all look? And in fact, if I open this up a little bit, there's additional details, as you probably have seen, as you've been adding your colleges in here based on the numbers. But the beauty part about it is it's showing, how do these offers look across the board? Of course, here BC is really high, right? But then we've got Loyola University. We've got, what is this? University of California, Berkeley, or San Diego, I guess. So the point is, each of these coming across, it's giving you a highlighted idea of where you are compared to what's going on. And then you also have the ability to do an appeals evaluation. So check this out. This gives you the ability in here to see, okay, where are you? Is it very strong or is it very low when it comes to our projection as to your ability to have a successful appeal? And you can see down here at the bottom, then what we do is, we're just giving you 3 examples here, but if this is a strong with Boston College, why is it? Well, it's the award amount, the type of institutional and methodology that they're using. Okay. Same thing with the next one, which is Amherst College. And then down below it with Dickinson, it's strictly the type of institution methodology. But notice we say that the chances here are pretty low. Why is that important? Because as you're deciding what you're going to do in the schools that you're going to try to, compete against each other, as Jason was saying, that the comparison's a big deal, because you're not going to be wanting to use a state institution, for example, against Boston College. I mean, it's just not going to work. It really needs to be that you're trying to approach this with like-minded colleges that are going after the same students again, just like Jason said, so that they are competing. And for that reason, hopefully we'll see that, hey, this other school gave a much better offer. for that reason, let's try to, give them a better offer so that maybe we'll have a chance of getting that particular student. Be proactive. Don't be afraid to do this. It's really, really important that you take advantage and take control of your situation. All right, Jason, I'm handing it back to you.
All right. Thanks, Dan. Okay, so we've actually got a couple questions tonight in the Q&A. This is a perfect segue. Like, okay, if we've evaluated our award offer, we feel like, yeah, we got some good candidate or good candidates for appeal, private colleges, change of circumstances. So how do we do it? Okay. All right. So honestly, you want to start planning now. Okay. You want to start planning now because it's a process. Okay. It is a process. Every school is going to have a different specific process, like a different form that you got to fill out and provide some documentation, et cetera. We'll tell you more about that here in a second. But you're probably going to want to submit your appeals in March and April. Kind of wait till you get all your awards, compare them, and then start doing your appeals. But you don't want to wait until April to get ready to get started preparing to do your appeals because it is a long, kind of lengthy process. In fact, with the parents we meet with and we are helping with appeals, we're meeting with them now because all right, we got to get this together. We got to get this documentation. And we got to get ready, right? And so, so let's say a case study. Your prior year income is not accurate, or something's changed. Now what? Okay. So the appeals process is your opportunity to tell your story. Okay. This is where, there's stuff on the forms that don't capture what's going on in your life and why you can't afford what they're asking you to pay. All right. Be prepared to provide documentation. That's why we say you want to start getting things ready now to submit in April, because if you wait till April, trust me, it's going to be very stressful for you because you're on a time crunch. All right. Now, you want to be persistent. This is something that's very important. A lot of parents are like kind of afraid of doing appeals, like, oh, I don't want to hurt my kid or pull the admissions off or anything like that. And trust us, the appeals process, that's not going to hurt your student. Okay. They're not going to pull the admissions off or anything like that. This is just part of the process. And actually being persistent demonstrates interest in a way, right? Because you're not going to go to them and hard-nosed negotiation like you're buying a car. You're going to go to them and say, hey, we're asking for help. We really want to send our kid here. Please help us. Okay, help us make this work. So if you're persistent, you're actually showing that you really want to send your kid to that school. Okay. Again, if it's a need-based appeal, that's going to come from the parents because it's going to go to the financial aid office and involve money. But if it, parental finances, if it's a merit-based appeal, it's going to come from the kid to the Office of Admissions. Okay, but a need-based appeal, like a prior year income, is different. That would be a parent-led appeal. You may, you want to challenge some expenses on that are different on tax forms, those kinds of things. You might have some expenses like, I talked to a family today, I think it was $20-some thousand in a repair because of it was like a storm or something. They had a roof leak, and they're like, there went our first semester of college money, or that kind of thing. So in some cases, you might want to make a specific ask. So in that case, we ran out $20,000 we had earmarked for college. It got spent on this emergency thing. We need $20,000 more. Or maybe you've got a budget in mind. When we work with families, we help them figure out a budget. You can afford $40K per year, whatever that number is. If they're at 50 and you can get to 40, you might want to say, hey, if you can get to 40, we can go. We can make it work. Okay. There might be in other cases where you don't want to do that, but sometimes that makes a lot of sense. If it is, if it's a merit appeal, a scholarship appeal, your student is going to be the one to lead the charge. Okay. So scholarship, merit appeal, student leads the charge, Office of Admission. Need-based grant appeal, parent leads the charge, Office of Financial Aid. All right. Okay, so here are some valid kind of need-based appeal items you might want to start getting ready. Okay, very, very common thing we see is the market value of your home or your home equity. Okay, so either you make the mistake of you put home equity in your primary residence on the FAFSA when you didn't have to, or you inflated the amount of home equity on the CSS profile. That's something you could appeal on. Again, we've had change in circumstances. 2024 was an amazing year. I talked to a family yesterday. Dad was in sales. 2024 was this amazing year. He had these giant commissions and bonuses. And then 25 came back to earth. And now he's like, we don't have nearly the money that it looks like we have, based on the 24 tax returns, that kind of thing. Again, we talked about changes in marital status, medical issues and expenses. This is another really important, valid need-based appeal item. If you had either one-time event, you had a major surgery or something like that, or you got ongoing expenses, you're battling, heaven forbid, you're battling cancer, or maybe I talked to a family recently where they had twins and one of the children has special needs and ongoing, the care was very, very, very expensive. So those kinds of things are valid need-based appeal items. Again, we talked about if you're a business owner, there's a lot of complexity around there. And I always joke, if you're a business owner, you want to think your business is worth as much as possible. Not this stage in life. This is the one stage in life, one time in your life when, as a business owner, you want to look as poor as possible. Okay. And as a business owner, you got some flexibility there, some planning opportunities. Again, if you have one-time events, the IRA distribution or something like that, a big inheritance or a severance package or your RSUs vested or something like that, you could use those as need-based appeal. Basically, any strain on your cash flow that isn't reflected on the FAFSA. Those are what you can take. Now, if you're going to do a merit-based appeal, the Office of Admissions controls that. And typically the schools have an internal reconsideration process. They might have a committee or something like that. And these are student-driven, okay? But what really makes a powerful merit-based appeal is, of course, we talked about leveraging scholarship offers from other schools, but if you have new or strengthened information, okay, since you applied, that helps a lot. You're going to want to provide supporting documentation. So, for example, maybe you got really great grades this last report card, or maybe you got a higher test score, or maybe you got, you made captain of the basketball team, or first chair in saxophone, violin, or something, or you started a business and raised $100,000 for a tech startup, or whatever. If you have some new information that makes you really stand out, you can take that back to the colleges, say, hey, could you please reconsider the merit offer? Sometimes that works. Okay. Now, again, on the need-based appeal strategy, that's going to go to the financial aid office. Every school is going to have their own process. Parents are going to lead this because it involves parent financials. And you're going to focus on the stuff that's not captured on the aid form, and make sure you highlight any changes to your financial picture since the base income year, or since you filed the FAFSA and the CSS profile. Be prepared to provide supporting documents. Okay. You're going to show, don't just tell. You're going to show, don't tell. All right. So some schools, be prepared. They're going to come back and ask for a lot of stuff. That's why we say start now. Okay. If you are thinking about you're going to need to be doing an appeal, you might want to talk to us right now, because we're going to say you're going to have to get these things gathered and ready to go for when we submit in March or April. Okay. Like this is an actual case, a college. We did an appeal for a family, help them with appeal. And the college came back and said, we need you to fill out this cash flow worksheet, literally like line by line. What do you spend every month? How much do you spend on the nail salon? How much do you spend on alcohol? How much do you spend on fuel? How much do you spend on groceries? How much do you spend on haircuts? They wanted that for 2 years. Oh my gosh, right? These colleges drives me crazy. They're going to want, tax returns. They're going to want W-2 forms. If you're doing an appeal, you're saying 25 is a terrible year. They're going to say, okay, give us your W-2s, give us your tax returns. So you might have to file your tax returns quickly and get those in. If you have private school tuition payments, they're going to say, show us the bills, your mortgage statements, copies of checking savings accounts. All right. Written details, for why the grandparent support went the way it did, all this kind of stuff. So point here is, when you do an appeal, whether it's merit or need-based, you're going to have to provide documentation. Be prepared for that. And again, that's why we say start now. Okay. So you're not all stressed and trying to do it at the end. So here's a cut. We do a lot of appeals for families every year. If you feel like you need help with an appeal, reach out and talk to us. We'll be honest with you about whether or not we think you're a good candidate for it or not. And if you want our help, we're happy to, chat with you about our services. But these are some successful cases we've had. So this is Occidental College. This was this family. Look, they got offered $12,000 in scholarship, $21,000 in a grant, and then a bunch of other stuff. So their gift aid they got was $34,000. This was before we did an appeal. Now, Occidental College looks at home equity. Okay. But once we started working with this family, we learned there were all kinds of reasons why the family couldn't access their home equity because of some change in circumstances and blah, blah, blah. And so we did an appeal. And after appeal, look what happened. They had 34,000 in gift aid. They got the 12,000 scholarship still there. And then look at this. The college grant went way up. And that's need-based. Basically, they said, okay, we're not going to ask you to tap into your home equity to pay for tuition at Occidental College. So afterwards, the gift aid amount was $62,000, an increase of $27,000 per year. That's over $100,000 in savings over 4 years. Here's another successful case. BU, look what they got offered. Zilch, no gift aid. Only thing they got offered was work study and loans, all right? Not even work study, just loans, need-based aid. Okay, and they're $90,000 a year. So we did an appeal, and look at that. Got a $28,000 scholarship. And now look at this one. $15,900. This is a true story. Actual appeal success. Look at what it's called, the Boston University Appeal Funds. All right, folks, I'm going to give you some insider secrets here. The former dean that spills the beans. A lot of colleges have buckets of money for appeals. So when parents say, we need to do our appeals now because they're going to run out of money, they're not going to run out of money. Okay, or they might not run out of money, very unlikely. That comes from a bucket of money specifically for appeals. So after the appeal, $45,000 of gift aid to BU, over 4 years, that's $180,000. All right. Couple more case studies. This one here, kind of a sad situation. This was a family for a year or two ago. The income in 23, the base income here is about $90K. They had a whole bunch of non-retirement assets, so they get the aid. But in 24, their income dropped to $45,000, and the husband became permanently disabled and couldn't work. So we appealed and said, there's not only been a drop in income, but there's underemployment, unemployment, and those non-retirement assets have to be used to pay for his expenses and care for the rest of his life. And so they came back and awarded $33,000 in need-based grants. Okay. And then we appealed a second time, or excuse me, the original was 33, appealed and got an extra 22 per year. Again, almost $100,000 in difference. Now, my last case study to share with you is my favorite. This was my family. Top choice was Syracuse. They got no merit scholarship from zilch, $90,000 a year, Syracuse. So I went back and appealed, highlighting, hey, look, the kid got good grades. He didn't, suffer from senioritis. He kept studying and got good grades. He had some leadership experience, had some extracurricular and work commitments, had some community service, highlight all this stuff, kind of building out the resume, if you will, leveraged some competing offers and, said, hey, it was our understanding we should have qualified for X in merit. After 3 rounds of appeals, Syracuse gave this family $60,000 a year, $240,000 in additional aid. So these are just last year's successful appeals. It's just a snapshot. You can see, there's some big ones. Not all of them are big. A lot of them are small, but even if you get an extra, $1,000, hey, that's $4,000 over 4 years, right? But you can see a lot of success on appeals. Almost you want to do it. So lastly, I'll just say, look, I'll say this over and over and again. You don't need to be afraid of appeals. This is just another step in the process. The university has offered your student admission. Now you're just trying to work together to figure out how much you can afford. So the appeal will not hurt your admissions offer. They're not going to pull the admissions offer. What you're trying to do is work together between college and parents to arrive at a cost, at a price point that is affordable for your family. Okay, so don't be afraid of it. They're not going to pull the admissions offer. Okay, so hopefully all of that was helpful. As we said earlier, we are happy to meet with you. Give you kind of a 15-minute freebie for 15 minutes. We'll discuss your situation, try to see where you are in the process, what's going on in your situation. Where did your kid get in? Where did they apply? What did they offer you? Are there anything going on in your life? We'll review the offers. How much scholarship did you get? That kind of thing. And then we'll basically give you advice on next steps. You're a good candidate for appeal. no, you're not, unfortunately, not a good candidate for appeal. And if you are a good candidate for appeal, we'll talk to you about whether or not you want to do it yourself, whether you want to DIY it, or if you want us to do it for you and what that would look like, because we do have a service where we do it for parents. And so if you're thinking, yeah, I think we're probably going to do, we need to be doing some appeals, highly recommend, book some time with us. Just let us, we are experts at this. We do thousands of these. We'll look at your situation and be able to tell very quickly, yeah, you're a good candidate for appeal. You're not a good candidate for appeal. And again, if we are, happy to chat with you about getting some help if you want some help. Okay, so Dan, anything I left out or anything we should wrap up? Looks like we got right on, look at that, right on time, 7:45.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the only comment I was going to make, don't let the other slide throw you. The dates on there were a little off, which is today, of course, is indeed February the 10th. Just
Oh.
recognize the fact that the offer for the free meetings goes until midnight tonight. And, the whole idea is that we're really hoping that you're going to, not even hoping, we're wanting you to get those appointments scheduled in the next week or two. Quite frankly, you need to. I mean, this is not a time to procrastinate, folks. When we're dealing with appeals, just like Jason said earlier, it really is a matter of getting in there and, asking and asking and asking if necessary, based on your circumstances. You know what's going on. And by the way, some folks tonight have asked some really incredible questions. Thank you for that. It's really a situation where because of the amount of success that we've had as an organization, we're kind of bullish on this because we really do believe. Now, if your situation is where there isn't any changes that have occurred, you're just trying to get them to give you more money, don't expect a need-based offer to change. But, quite frankly, we do believe that there's opportunities with merit, and definitely there's opportunities with need if you have legitimate need. So come to us. Don't be afraid to schedule that meeting. It'll be the best 15 minutes of that you could consider. In fact, I would make a comment to you, which is this. Somebody asked about the pricing. Let's say it costs, $1,500, $2,000 compared to your student going to a school that's 40, 50, 60, $100,000 per year. Is that a good use of your time to try to save some money? I would say absolutely yes. In fact, not doing it is again kind of the definition of insanity, because you really, really do need to take a look at what's going on out there. And we're here to help.
Yeah, and now's the time to start, because I was just talking to a family about this today. A lot of schools, if you're going to be doing need-based appeals, they're going to want to see tax returns, which means if you don't have your tax returns done, and back, you want to start now, because you might need to get your tax returns done before they'll actually process the appeal. So that's, lots of kind of reasons to start now. That's a big one for sure. But the other thing, you get a lot of clarity too. That's the other thing. If you just talk to us and we'll be honest with you about whether or not you're a good candidate for appeal. So,
Absolutely.
All right. Let's see here. We have a few minutes. Should we take a couple of questions?
Sure.
Take them live.
Yeah, actually, so somebody asked the question, can we choose who we book time with? And the answer is absolutely yes. You can. You're going to see, I think that's right, isn't it, Jason, when it rolls up that the schedule, I don't know, is it on a rolling calendar? I don't know. I thought it was.
I don't know either, but you could always just, if you want to meet with Dan or you want to meet with me, you can just email us. That'd be fine,
Yeah.
That'd be
right.
With that. Yeah. How much does it cost? Again, it all depends on what kind of level of support you want. We got a couple of different levels. If you want us to do everything for you, that's a certain price point, of course, because we're doing more work. But if you kind of want to collaborate on something, it's less. So let's see here. It's your opportunity to get some questions answered. Ever had any luck with Clemson? Yeah. They're, depends on if it's need-based or merit-based. But a lot of schools in the South, I'll say, and Dan, you can weigh in on this if you want to, but I live down here in the South in Savannah, Georgia, and these Southern schools have been doing a pretty good job for the last few years of giving merit awards, giving merit aid. In part, it's a recruitment strategy. They're trying to get kids from the North and the West to come down here so they can, increase their enrollment and rankings. But yeah, we've had some luck with Clemson, but it all depends on the circumstances.
actually, Jesse, here's another one, and we're seeing this a lot. Someone said, "Hey, my student got a scholarship offer already, but we haven't seen the financial aid letter yet." And that's not uncommon, folks. This is the time when you have to remember, here's the deal. Colleges first have to accept your student, then they'll process the financial aid. And so that's why it could be a couple of weeks, it could be a month, until that type of thing happens. So, just realize that that's what's going on there.
Yeah. Why is Penn State not generous with financial package?
My
That
gosh,
is a great question.
we have bat this around all over the place, haven't we?
They're just mean.
They are mean. Yeah.
I'm a graduate of the Ohio State University, so I can pick on Penn State. They're
Yeah.
just mean. We'll put them
Hey,
on our
listen,
wall of shame.
right, they are on a wall of shame. Hey, I just put the link in the box again, or in the chat for you all, as far as scheduling that meeting. So feel free to do that. And other questions, if you've got them, again, continue to put them into the Q&A for us, because we're going to feverishly try to answer them.
Yeah. What about Northeastern need-based? Yeah, definitely. They're a
Yeah.
need school.
Yeah. In fact, I'm working with the family right now on exactly that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Ability to pick major estimated first year salaries. Renita, good question, but we're not really on the tech team. What I would do
Right.
is I would email support at collegeaidpro.com and ask them. I'll put it in your little answer there.
Yeah. Question is, how is Villanova with merit or unchanged circumstances aid if leveraging presidential scholarships or displaying new awards? It's like anything else. It really does not hurt to ask. So go for it. Okay. Don't be afraid to ask for an appeal. And again, if you need help drafting that letter and really being able to work through that, that's where we can come into play.
Ooh, we got a great question here. Should we assume any need-based aid awarded one year will disappear next year if income goes up? Depends on the school. Great question. Some schools will lock in all 4 years based on that first year, but other schools it's year by year potentially. So unfortunately might potentially, but that's something maybe you could talk to them about. The other thing is it could go the opposite direction. There's potentially planning opportunity. If your income goes down, you potentially get more aid in future years. So it all depends on the school.
Can we appeal for ED2 acceptance? Absolutely, but you better be prepared to get on it immediately, because they're going to expect an answer from your student very quickly.
So I'm typing an answer here. All right.
Okay.
Why did Parent Plus loans change so drastically to a lower number? Well, that's Congress.
Yes,
Or was
yes,
it
it
Congress?
is.
That's the act of Congress, right? Not just Department of Ed. What's the official?
Yeah, I think you're right on that. And
Yeah.
obviously that was
Beautiful
dramatic,
bill.
because it used to be unlimited amounts of money that the parents could take out for kids. And now it's truly, again, $20,000 per year for the first 3 years, and then 5, as I said, after that. So.
Yeah, not to get on the soapbox, but it's going to require some strategic planning because you can't just take out the maximum amount now as a parent. But on the other hand, I don't think it's necessarily horrible because, frankly, one of the reasons why college costs keep going up and up and up and up and up, one of the reasons, there are many, but one of them is because a lot of colleges know, or it used to be the case, where they could just keep raising prices and the Parent Plus loan could go up with the prices. So it was almost like perverse incentives.
Yeah.
So maybe it'll help to bring costs down over time, hopefully. I don't know. But all right. Our emails, physical letters were the best way for students to request merit aid and parents in need. Good question. Check the process for need-based aid appeals, special circumstances appeals on the website, the financial aid website of the college. But if it's if it's a merit-based appeal, definitely you're going to want to probably email them or attach a letter to an email, and maybe even call if their students comfortable and mature. Have them call and talk to the admissions officer.
Are Georgia Tech, Purdue, Michigan in the same category as Penn State? Depends if you're in the state. If you're an in-state student, it's definitely a different conversation that takes place there. If you're out of state, you have to understand that their allegiance is going to be to in-state families. Merit money, it just depends on the caliber of your student as to whether or not they're going to qualify for anything there.
Yeah. They're definitely not in the same league in terms of football, so that's for sure. Great. Okay, are you able to assist with veterans benefits? Yeah, absolutely. Chapter 33 and 35. We actually have a specialist on our team. We have about 20, 25 pros on the team, but one is Mike Hunsberger, and he's a veteran himself, and he specializes in working with veteran families. And so we can put you in contact with Mike H. To help with veteran benefits.
Any luck with Coastal Carolina? Yes. Yeah, we absolutely have had success there.
My kids go to Georgia Southern. We have not had much luck with Coastal Carolina in football lately. They've voted us. All right. Are appeals successful when you have a student with lots of AP and DC classes? My student might be able to choose a college and no financial. Yeah, again, it's going to depend on the school. Do they offer, merit to begin with? And then, how generous are they and that kind of thing. So, again, school by school basis. It all depends on which schools you're talking about.
Would Brandeis match with Pitt? Two different kinds of schools, folks. I mean, you're talking a big public school versus a private school. So you could ask them, but whether or not they're going to consider themselves in the same league is a different story.
Mentioned families appealed multiple times in college. How does that work, and why would you appeal second time? You basically appeal the appeal, and the reason you do it is if you can't meet the expected family contribution, you just can't afford that. You go back and say, hey, I can't meet this. I need more, basically.
Have you seen cases where the degree program may make a difference of less offers based on certain types of programs? Colleges seem less interested in their GPA than the auditions. Well, I'll just say this to you. Remember that you're dealing with a talent here that absolutely could come into play when it comes to the type of merit scholarships, for example, that they may give out. Actually, I just had this conversation with another family I'm working with in California where the father's convinced that USC, University of Southern California out there, gives less money to students in certain degree programs because they're so popular. We don't know. We can't look behind the curtain in that particular case, but it's still worth a try.
All right. What mistakes to avoid when appealing? Couple common ones. Not following the process the school requires. Number two, I would say not providing documentation, making a claim that you can't support with documentation. Number three, using reasons that don't move the needle, that they don't really consider as a grounds for an appeal.
Yeah. Will our SAI lower once we have two kids in college? With the federal, no, it will not change. In fact, it'll be the same amount for both kids. With the SAI, for the institutional schools that use the CSS profile, maybe. You have to check and see if those schools give out a multi-student discount.
If Merit A letter says it's final, can we still appeal? You can, but you may get the answer, hey, buddy, we said it's final. A nice provisional version of it's final. Okay.
Yeah. Do you recommend taking out a Parent Plus loan versus having the student take out the loan? We are not big fans of Parent Plus loans because the interest rates are so high. The loan origination fee is 4.228%. I mean, it just adds up to be a lot of cost. We don't know your circumstances, so we can't just randomly answer that question. It always does make sense though to start with the student loans. The only problem is it enough to help cover the gap that exists there? So you may have to look at other options. That's why you really in that case ought to schedule a meeting with us because we can absolutely help guide you with some other options that make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Just even a couple of points on an interest rate, could mean thousands of dollars in savings.
Yeah.
All right, got a merit award on January 30th. How long should we wait? It depends, but generally the advice is, probably want to meet with us. We can talk you through it. But generally the advice is wait until you see what you get from all the other schools.
I'm not sure what this is asking. Do you know what they're asking here?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I think we got time for maybe one more.
Okay. If we're visiting a school, should we request an in-person meeting with admissions for merit aid and financial aid office when we are there? Absolutely. If you can do that, go for it. I mean, what better way? They can't lie to you, if you're facing them across the desk. But here's the deal. If you're going to go, make sure that you've got all your documentation with you because they're likely going to ask, and be prepared. it may be a pretty emotional conversation. So, just be prepared for that, depending upon how they react to it.
All right. One last thing I'm going to share. This is our landing page here. You will be able to see the webinar recording tomorrow. I believe they take some kind of overnight, but I'll drop the link in there. But that's it for us tonight, everybody. Hopefully this was helpful. Again, if you got some questions or you're wondering about whether or how to do an appeal, take advantage of that consult. Just get on our calendar because it fills up fast.
Awesome. And hey, Jason, great doing this with you this evening. Folks, thanks for joining us. We really do wish you the best. We know this is a stressful time of the process, but don't forget about us. We're here truly to help you. And I promise you that there are just a great group of experts that are going to be able to guide you through this process. So thanks for joining us. Good night, everybody.